You are listening to an American Free Press podcast. Joining me on the line is former CIA analyst and case officer, senior investigator for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, counterterrorism consultant for ABC News and author, John Kiriakou. John, thanks for joining us today.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
John, I saw an article online on gotnews.com breaking Barack Obama's CIA director John Brennan and his allies are targeting Trump supporters for surveillance. I want to get into that in great detail in a moment, but before we do, for the benefit of the listeners, of course, I'm sure most listeners know about you and what happened to you exposing waterboarding. But for the benefit of the listeners, the ones who might not know, can you give them a little bit of background about who you are?
My name is John Kiriakou. I spent 15 years with the CIA, the first half in analysis, the second half in counterterrorism operations. I left the CIA in 2004 and went into the private sector. Later, I was the senior investigator on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And then in 2007, in an interview on ABC News, I blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program. I was investigated for 4 years for my revelations, and I ended up going to prison for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015. Since I got home in 2015, I've been very outspoken on issues mostly surrounding torture and government overreach, prison reform, things like that. I have a weekly syndicated newspaper column now, speak at colleges and universities around the country, and I talk to the press as frequently as I can.
Thank you, John, for explaining that. Yeah, as I told you before the program, I was very disheartened about what they did to you, and I know a lot of my colleagues felt the same, and we were rooting for you. Such a beautiful man, such as yourself, and of course a beautiful family man with 5 kids, doing the right thing. We've seen this happen so many times, but to watch it unfold, for me anyway, it was heartbreaking.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. It's been an odyssey, and I'm not overstating things when I say that I could not have gotten through this nightmare without the support that I got from people all over the country.
Absolutely. They come together when something like this happens, that's for sure. So this article, John, that I was referring to, you were in there, and I don't know if you saw this particular article or aware of it, but they, I guess, linked to an interview you had done with someone else. Do you think that the Obama administration and the holdovers from the Obama administration, if I don't know how many are left right now, do you think that they had orders to surveil Trump? Do you think that Susan Rice was involved? Do you think that John Brennan was involved?
I think that this is really a very complicated story. I'm not sure that I'm so cynical to say that an order was made to surveil Trump and people associated with the Trump campaign. With that said, I think that once the CIA and NSA realized that the people they were surveilling were in touch with Trump and the Trump campaign, or were senior officials of the Trump campaign, I think they decided to continue down that road. Let me talk specifically about Susan Rice, because I think this is really the crux of the whole thing. It is not at all unusual for an American citizen, or for what's called a U.S. person, that is any person in the United States legally on a green card, to have their communications vacuumed up by NSA. Now, sometimes that U.S. citizen or U.S. person is in a conversation with an NSA target. If the information is important enough, NSA will gist the conversation and then release it as a cable to the entire intelligence community so that anybody with top secret SITK gamma clearances and a need to know have access to the report without the name of the American citizen or U.S. person. So let's say I'm an analyst at the CIA and I get a report from NSA saying that, and I'm just going to make this up, saying that a Russian was having a conversation with an American citizen, and this is what the Russian said, X, Y, and Z. Well, X, Y, and Z is interesting to me as an analyst. So I have the right and the ability to pick up my secure telephone and call NSA and say, hey, I'm reading report number 12345 that you just released, and I need to know who the U.S. person is. I need to know who the U.S. citizen is. And so they'll tell me that U.S. citizen or that U.S. person cited in the report is Paul Manafort, or it's Mike Flynn, or whoever it happens to be. Now, that helps me as an analyst decide how I'm going to evaluate this information. Should I take this information seriously? Was the Russian trying to impress the American? Was the Russian trying to pass a message to the American to then pass it back to the U.S. government? That way an analyst can really get to the bottom of what the story is. Susan Rice is not an analyst at the CIA. Susan Rice was a political figure. She was an important political figure, but she was a political appointee of the Obama White House. It is absolutely unheard of for someone at Susan Rice's lofty, vaunted position to pick up the phone and call NSA and ask for an unmasking. What possible use would she have for that unmasking? She's not doing the analysis for the rest of the community. She was just curious. Well, what she did was not necessarily illegal, but it was certainly unethical. Absolutely unethical. And I think that it's part of a bigger problem. And that problem is the overreach of our intelligence services. So the bottom line for me is, was the CIA, the NSA, and perhaps other U.S. intelligence services taking what might be an illegally deep look at the Trump campaign? I think actually that the answer is yes. And I think that the president really needs to push this to the next level and appoint a special prosecutor. A special prosecutor, as we saw during the Clinton years, may stumble onto things that some politicians might want to keep quiet. But I think that this story is important enough and goes directly to our own civil liberties that the president does need to appoint a special prosecutor and let the cards fall where they may. If it takes down Manafort and Flynn, well, maybe Manafort and Flynn should have reported their Russian contacts. But this may also take down Susan Rice, and it may also take down other people inside the Obama White House. We know that Obama was overreaching, and it wasn't just Obama. It was pretty much everybody that Obama surrounded himself with. I think the American people are owed an explanation, and I think that really as a country we need to get to the bottom of this story.
Did you ever come into contact with, you probably did, but I don't know, because I've never done the amazing things that you've done in your life and in your career, but had you come into contact with Michael Flynn or Susan Rice or John Brennan personally, face to face?
Well, I'll do the easy one first. Susan Rice, no, never met her. Mike Flynn, yes, a couple of times. I was not impressed by him, and to tell you the truth, I was absolutely shocked when he was named National Security Advisor. I thought that was an awful idea the moment it was uttered. I predicted in an interview on shadowproof.org that he would last a month, and indeed he lasted a month. John Brennan I've known since 1990, and I knew him quite well. John was a tough, mean, arrogant, and very, very political son of a gun. John stepped on a lot of people over the years to get to where he was, and he was ruthless in doing so. I was not at all surprised when John became the important person in the intelligence community that he did. In 2008, when every Democrat in the CIA was running to the Clinton campaign, John was the only one who ran to the Obama campaign. Obama wanted to name him CIA director in 2009, but liberals around the country protested because Brennan was up to his neck in the Bush-era torture program, his denials notwithstanding. And finally, when the liberals were pacified by 2012, Obama knew that he could name Brennan CIA director, and that's exactly what he did. I thought that John was always a little too smart for himself, for his own benefit, and I always believed that he was in over his head at the CIA. I think that's proven to be true. And I think that, again, if we had a special prosecutor really digging down into the depths of what was going on at the CIA, I think that we would find crimes against the American people and crimes against our own government that we haven't even begun to discuss, with John Brennan there at the very top of it all.
You know, there's scuttlebutt going around, there has been for years, about John Brennan being a Muslim. Is there any truth to that?
No, John's a devout Catholic. Devout Catholic. He always has been.
He's a Jersey boy. He grew up in North Bergen. You grew up in Pennsylvania. Where is the town you grew up in relation to? Is it near Jersey?
No, it's on the opposite side. It's 50 miles north of Pittsburgh.
I see. And Susan Rice, and if this is correct on Wikipedia, you guys were born the same year, 1964.
Makes me feel like an underachiever.
I don't think anybody's going to buy that, John. And Michael Flynn, he was born 1958. I myself was born 1960, so I'm the classic underachiever. And John Brennan, he was born 1955, so he's the older guy amongst us all. And he was from North Bergen, New Jersey. There's some tough, hardscrabble neighborhoods there, and so I can see what you're saying about him being tough at his job because he had to be tough on the streets in order to survive.
Without it.
John Kiriakou. John, I want to thank you so much for the time you spent explaining all this to the listeners. You are a great American, there's no doubt, and thank you for what you did for the cause of truth and, unfortunately, having to go to prison, but not compromising what you knew to be right. And believe me, John, there are millions of good Americans out there and people throughout the world who know what you did was the right thing to do, and we really do appreciate it. I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you again real soon on your latest book.
Well, thank you so much for having me. The pleasure really is all mine, and thanks also for your support. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I literally could not have gotten through this without the support of people like you and so many Americans who wrote to me while I was in prison and made sure that my wife and kids were doing well and didn't forget that I was away. I know that I did the right thing. I've said before, I'm on the wrong side of my government, but I think I'm on the right side of history, and I would do it all again.